Good morning and happy Sabbath, everyone. Happy Sabbath to all those who are worshiping elsewhere, outside the church as well, at home or you are elsewhere. Happy Sabbath to everyone as well. Do you remember the time when you were in school? Whether you were in kindergarten, in primary school, secondary school, or elsewhere. You know, to me, I remember very vividly my first day in a new school when I was doing my A-levels. So we were, as a student, we were anxiously waiting to see who our teachers are. So I remember it was a physics lesson, and then came this gentleman, quite an elderly gentleman, gray hair, looked very learned with the thick spectacles. So he came in and introduced himself. My name is so-and-so. I will be your physics teacher. So we are quite happy to meet an experienced physics teacher. Then came the next thing that he said. All the while, I have been a maths teacher. I have never taught physics before. But because we do not have enough physics teacher, here I am teaching all of you. And then the next things that he mentioned, that I remember until today, he said, because I have not taught physics before, if you don't know anything, please don't ask me. I also don't know. So that was the introduction to our physics teacher. And for the rest of the year, his lesson is, I do not know where he get his notes from. We have a textbook, but he got another set of notes, perhaps from teachers from other schools or elsewhere. So for the rest of the year, his lesson is always copying, asking us to copy down notes on the blackboard, and then we are there with our notepad taking down notes. That's all we do for the rest of the year. I have serious doubts about passing my physics in A-level. Then we waited for the next period. It was a bio period. The bio teacher came. It was a younger gentleman. He's a Malay man. I remember he was a Malay teacher with a mustache. He carries a very thick biology book, A-level biology book, came into the class. At least this one looks very confident. But we have some doubts in us, The older one looked more experienced, had never taught physics before. Now we have doubts. This younger bio teacher coming to teach us. He introduced himself. My name is so-and-so. I have taught in this school for more than 10 years. Wow, at least that's a relief. Somebody who has taught. And then, is it taught mathematics or some other subject? No, I have taught biology for more than 10 years. Wow, what a relief. Then came the bad news. But this is my first time teaching A-levels biology. I have been teaching to the secondary 3 and secondary 4, the O-level type of biology. But not to worry. I am now attending teacher training courses once every fortnight. In other words, this teacher have never taught A-level biology and is still attending training, and then they send this teacher to teach us. Wow, we were all thinking we have serious doubts about passing our A-level. But thank God we have very good mathematics teacher, we have very good chemistry teacher. And we managed to scrape through our A-level, just pass our A-level. But that was the experience, There are times when you face doubts in your life. You cannot help it. The problem is whether or not your doubts overshadows your beliefs. So this is what we are going to talk about today from the lesson from Acts chapter 24 to 26. Of course, there are a lot of things that we can talk about. We can talk about the courage to share the message and so on, as what the two boys have shared earlier. But today, I think because of the shortage of time, we can only focus on one particular theme about overcoming doubts. All right, so if you are comfortable, let us bow down our heads for a prayer before we continue. Dear Lord, we are thankful to be able to be here to share your words together. Lord, as we learn from the story of Paul, the trial that he has gone through, we know that many times in our life, we face trials, even though it may be in the different settings. But Lord, may you teach us to understand where the doubts come from and how do we overcome it. We pray for your presence here with us and guide and lead us as we learn together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. In summary, I think just now the children's story have summarized the whole chapter 24 to 26 very, very well, so I need not dwell too much on this. The background is that Paul has been faithfully ministering to the Jews and to the Gentiles. However, there are people who want him killed, just like they want Jesus to be nailed on the cross. And then to cut the story short, in chapter 24, he was transported out of Jerusalem by the Roman soldiers. All right, so he appears before Felix, and he shared his case. And they found, in chapter 24, they found that actually there's nothing deserving him to be put in prison or to be put to death. All right? But just to keep the Jews happy, they kept him there, and they jailed him for another 2 years. But the good thing is that the jail that he's put into is actually a minimum security prison, protected by the Roman soldiers. He's free to move about to share his message. I'm sure at that time there were many other believers who prayed very, very hard for him. But it seems that the prayers are not answered. He's still kept in prison for the next 2 years. All right? But through all this, I'm sure Paul has a lot of doubt. I haven't done anything wrong, and there are these people who are accusing me, wanting to kill me, and so on. And I'm put into the prison. But along the way, he has this opportunity to share with Felix, with all those people in higher authority. And while he is moving around, actually it is an advantage for him to have the bodyguards, the Roman bodyguard with him for the next 2 years, for him to be able to spread the message. In chapter 25, there was a regime change. Festus supposed to replace Felix. And then the Jews again requested for Paul to be returned to Jerusalem. And of course, we saw in the video earlier on that Paul appealed to Caesar. And then Festus consulted Agrippa. King Agrippa is a king of Jerusalem at that time, actually have no jurisdiction whatever against Paul. But because the Festus, Paul has appealed to go to see Caesar, and then Festus have to write something. Therefore, in chapter 25, it mentioned about he consulted Agrippa, who have a better understanding of the Jews on what to write regarding Paul. And because of that, in chapter 26, we see that Paul is able to mount his own defense, and they found him not guilty. And even Agrippa claimed under verse 8 that he almost believed. So we can see the effectiveness of Paul's sharing then. So that sums up chapter 24 to 26. I'm sure as we go through, there are other believers, and even Paul himself would have gone through a lot of difficult times. And in difficult times, we face challenges, we face doubts. So for today's sharing, I'm going to focus on how to overcome doubts. So there are 4 main causes of doubts which I'm going to share today. So the bulk of my sharing today, we will focus more on these 4 main causes of doubts. Because to overcome doubts, we must always begin by understanding how does this doubt come about, right? Okay, the slides, there are something missing. There are supposed to be some more things, animation, to reveal the next 2. All right, it's okay. So the bulk of the sharing today focus on the main causes. There are the 4 causes of doubts, and then we are going to talk about the impact of doubts have on us, and I will end by sharing how to overcome doubt. Basically, that is a summary of what I'm going to share today, all right? So everyone will have doubt. In the Bible, we talk about Thomas having doubt. When Jesus resurrected, he couldn't believe until he personally touched Jesus' arm, hands, and the side. Sarah, when she was told that she's going to have a baby, she laughed. She has doubt that God is going to carry out this promise. John the Baptist, when he was in the prison, he doubted whether the man that they are talking about is actually Jesus, the promised Savior that is coming. Gideon, when God promised him, has doubt whether God is going to carry out his promises through him. He tested God not once, twice. Moses, when he was called to lead the Egyptian out of Egypt, doubted whether he is good enough to speak for God's people. So, and we realize that the person with the strongest doubt eventually become the strongest disciples of Jesus. All right, so doubt is everywhere. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this basically is a summary. So I'm going to dwell now into the 4 reasons of doubt. Basically, our circumstances can cause us to have doubt. Other people around us, comparison game, as well as our past failures. These are the 4 reasons for our doubts. All right? Circumstances. When Abraham, even though the Bible mentioned him as the father of faith, all right, when he went into Egypt, and because the Bible mentioned that Sarah was very beautiful, he was afraid that they may take his wife and then kill him. So under that kind of circumstances, he has doubt whether God is able to save him. So he told Sarah, if you are asked, just tell them you are my sister. So Abraham, the father of faith, went through doubt. Jesus, when he was nailed on the cross, all the disciples, if you read from the New Testament, the disciples have doubt. They were afraid. They were not sure whether Jesus will be resurrected, and they were scattered everywhere. All right. I remember when I was growing up in Pontian Church, small little church. We have a very faithful elder. Unfortunately, the wife of the elder contracted cancer. I think last stage of cancer. So of course they prayed hard, and we have doubt. Whenever we face with illness, we have doubt. So these elders pray very, very hard, and then at that time, 30, 40 years ago, the level of medical care in a small town in Malaysia is not very good, all right? So he has doubt whether his wife can be saved. He tried all means, from Chinese medicine to, and it's quite sad that under that kind of circumstances, eventually he went to temples, to mosques, whichever avenue is available to him, he went. But eventually the wife passed on, he left the church. You see, when circumstances like this comes, we will face doubt. But how do we overcome the doubt is another thing. I shared with you in the past when I shared here about how my wife and myself, my wife lost the passport when we were in Finland. We almost couldn't come back for our son's wedding. All right? So if you ask me, under that kind of circumstances, do you have doubt? We have serious doubt. We are doubtful whether we are able to get back the passport or not. But over the years, I think because of our positive experiences with God, it has taught us that whether or not you get back your passport is not important. It is that God will do something. Deep inside, we know God will do something, but the doubt is still there whether we will get back our passport, whether we will be able to rush back on time for my son's wedding. All right, so circumstances. Number 2, other people can cause us to have doubt. You look at this picture, it is a picture of crabs. If you take crabs and put them into a container, this is what crabs does. Instead of helping each other, pushing each other to get up from the bowl to escape, they will try to pull each other down. If I cannot escape, I might as well make sure you don't escape, you stay here with me. You know, they say. So normally that's what crab does. So there are a lot of people around us who are like crabs. All right? If I don't believe, I make sure you also don't believe, you come down with me. All right? And there are a lot of people around us who can turn any positive situation into negative situation. These are the people who will exaggerate from bad to worse. Everybody is bad to them, all right? And these normally are the people with very poor self-image. That's why they criticize a lot of things. They criticize people, they complain a lot. And they are the ones who are always looking at the cup half full. They always look at the half empty part, all right? So other people can have an impact on the doubt. Okay? And there is this motivation speaker, South African of Greek origin, Tanya Kotsos. She wrote an article called Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. All right? She's a motivational speaker and an author. So she mentioned that everyone is your mirror. This is the greatest of all relationship secrets, and the only one you really need to understand to transform all your relationships. So she is a relationship guru. She has conducted many, many sessions around the world to help people build good relationship with your spouse, with your friends, and so on. So she mentioned that this interesting concept about everyone is your mirror. And when you do your relationship, the qualities you most admire in others are part of your consciousness, and the same goes for the quality you dislike. This then means that to change anything in your relationship, you must be the change you want to see. There are people who, they can't form serious relationship with people. Everywhere they go, whichever company they work in, they feel that people are against them. They are not happy everywhere else. So Tanya Kotsos is trying to say that Instead of blaming other people looking outside for the problem, perhaps we should reflect inside us. Because the people that we interact with, how we perceive others is like a mirror, If you're always a very suspicious type, thinking that there are people who want to pull you down, you're very suspicious. People give you things, you don't say thank you. You say, you must have some ulterior motive to want to give me something. So you are always very negative in the way you think about other people. So when you see other people, it's like a mirror. You are seeing yourself. You are judging people based on what you actually see. So this is what Tanya Kotsos is trying to say, right? So he says, in order to have good relationship, whether with your spouse, with your children, with your colleagues, begin the change with ourselves, change our views. So a loving person lives in a loving world. A hostile person lives in a hostile world. Everyone you meet is your mirror. I remember during one of the D group meetings in my group, so we were sharing about how you feel about the people around you, what challenges you face, and so on. I remember one of the young member in the D group shared with us. He shared about this person that he met that has a great influence on his life. So according to this member in the D group, he shared that he is quite a negative and skeptical person. He doesn't trust people so easily. Until he met this other person, actually it was his mother-in-law. He said this mother-in-law is like an angel. So we asked him to elaborate further. What do you mean by this mother-in-law is an angel? He said, because to my mother-in-law, everybody is an angel. There is no bad people in this world. In other words, he feels that sometimes the mother-in-law is a little bit gullible, easily believe people and so on. But the mother-in-law lives a very happy life because it is a loving person live in a loving world. The mother-in-law lives in a world where everybody is good. Everybody can be trusted and so on. Even though to some people they say, hey, this is very gullible, you believe everybody. But this mother thinks highly of everyone around her. This mother-in-law thinks positively all the people around her. She lives a very, very happy life. So a hostile person lives in a hostile world. If you think that people are out there to cheat you, if there are people who think badly about you, there are people who laugh at you behind your back, you will live in this kind of hostile world. All right? So basically, this is what it means. Everyone you meet is your mirror. In Numbers chapter, in the book of Numbers, when he talk about when the Israelite was ready to go into Canaan, so they sent down 12 spies, all right, under the Numbers chapter 14, verse 28. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land. This is the account of the 12 spies that came back from the land of Canaan. 12 of them went out and then came back. This was their report, right? They said the people in that land are strong, and the cities are all walled, very great, and moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. All right, so this is the first part of their lesson. They are already great people staying in the land. And then they continue. Numbers chapter 13, verse 32. And they brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone through to search is a land that eateth up in its inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature, giants, big people. And there we saw the giants, the son of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshopper, and so we were in their sight. You see, the exaggeration part, they say these people are so big, we are just like grasshoppers. And verse 37, even those men that bring up the evil report on the land, they died by the plague. In other words, in chapter 14, it talks about how God actually punishes these 10 spies who brought back negative report. 2 of the spies that same, Caleb and Joshua, chose to defer. They say, no, that is not what we saw. Even though the people are big, the cities are all walled up, they trusted in God's belief. They may still have doubt that these people, how are we going to defeat? But they have faith in God. Their faith is stronger than their doubt. Joshua and Caleb actually have a different view. They dare to take a stand. And they tell the congregation, no. I think if this is God's promise, then we can do it. We can go in and conquer the land. And that's what they did. Verse 38 mentioned that Joshua and Caleb eventually, these are the two spared. The other 10 actually died because they brought back false accusation, false news to discourage the people. The third cause of doubts is playing the comparison game. If you look at the poster at the side, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So the next few slides, I will elaborate a little bit by what it means. In 2 Corinthians, it mentioned that, for we dare not make ourselves of the number or compare ourselves with some that commend themselves. But they, measuring themselves by themselves, comparing themselves among themselves, are not wise. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 actually tells us that comparing with each other is not wise. But sometimes we cannot help it. We are wired this way. We are born this way. We tend to compare. Our judgment of things are not absolute. Our judgment of things many times are based on our comparison with other people. Like example, if you get a new job, they pay you, let's say, $3,000, you will be very happy. Oh, I got $3,000 every month. Compared to this person who can't even get a job, $3,000 is very good. Until another person joined your company, and then you found out, hey, this person earned $4,500. And he just joined. I've been working here for 2 years, and my salary is only $3,000. How would you feel? The type of work that you are doing are still the same. The salary that you are receiving are still the same. But because in comparison to the next person who come in, without knowing his background and so on, just comparing the background, you already start to feel differently. So there are many times comparison game is the one that causes us to have doubt. Eleanor Hunt mentioned that reality is not fact. It is simply a matter of perspective. So we must always keep in mind this one. Reality, there's no such thing as reality when we see things. It's always in relative to other people, the things that we see. You look at this picture, what is the difference between the A and the B box? It is a checker plate. Between the A and the B, any different? If you look at this one closely, most of you will see that A is darker, B is lighter. Checker box, black, white, and so on. But if I slowly take away the surrounding, right? I take away some more. What do you see? You realize that actually they are the same. A and B are exactly the same. They are gray color. The tone is exactly the same. But when put together with the other boxes, all right, the illusion of the shadows and so on give us the illusion that one is lighter, one is darker. So this is what it means by our judgment many times are not absolute. It is based on our comparison with things around us. So reality is not a fact. It's a matter of perspective. Okay, so this is actually a famous visual illusion. Maybe I just read some of the part. It's called the Edison checker shadow illustration. So they mentioned that there are several variables involved in how the brain determines the colors of square A and B. Of course, because of the shadow illusion and so on, right? But the last paragraph, for Edison, this illustration is proof of our visual system effectiveness rather than its defectiveness. Because when we look at things, we don't look at things in absolute term. It is always in comparison. So we must learn to have this positive comparison. Number 4, we talk about past failure can also cause us to have doubts. When we think back about our past failures, if we don't put a closure to it, it is like a film playing over and over again, magnifying our mistakes, telling us that whatever we do is not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. So we must learn to let go of past failures, because past failures is another reason why we have doubt. And what is the impact of the doubts? All right, so you see that the black poster says that faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the presence of belief. In Mark chapter 9, it shares a story. In Mark chapter 9, it talks about a child who was demon-possessed. The child cannot talk and always foam at the mouth. We throw him down on the ground. So the father is a non-believer, came to Jesus. He said, Jesus, in the Mark chapter 9, he said, Jesus, if you can, heal my son. And then Jesus' reply was, What do you mean if I can? If you believe, anything is possible. You see, this father doubted whether Jesus will heal or can heal the son. But even then, this story illustrates that even in our doubt, when we have doubt, God can answer our prayer. God is there to help us. All right? So faith is not the absence of doubt. You can still have doubt, but your faith must be stronger than the doubt. All right? And then those who leave everything in God's hand will eventually see God's hand in everything. Like I shared with you, our experience of losing the passport, right? We still have doubt whether we will get back the passport. But when we hand everything back into God's hand, we eventually see God's hand in everything that we do. We are able to come back safely and on time to attend my son's wedding. In Philippians chapter 4, it said, be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. So, if we don't overcome our doubts, the doubt will limit our potential, things that we can do. It will also limit our ability to ask God to help us. And, we come to the last part, which I will not elaborate in detail, every single one of them. It requires some practice, right? To overcome doubts, we need to live by faith. We need to take a stand. We need to change our narrative and focus on God's blessings. We need to claim God's promises. And strangely, in the book of Ephesians, right, it mentioned that besides all this, having taken up the shield of faith, in the book of Ephesians 6, it mentioned that faith is like a shield to us, right, which you will be able to quench all the flaming darts of the evil one. So having the shield of faith. There are a lot of times, just like the illusion of the black square and the white square, we couldn't differentiate which is which. But sometimes it is by faith that we have to trust in God. There are times where we can't see his hands. Just like Paul, after praying to God, he is still in prison for the 2 years. So it is only by faith that we can move forwards and overcome the doubt. Number 2, sometimes we need to take a stand. Just like the 12 spies sent to spy Canaan. 10 came back with negative news. 2 remained faithful to God. They dared to take the stand, that this is not true. We can actually capture the land because God is with us. The third one talks about change of narrative. What is this narrative? Narrative is the voice that speaks to you every day. Even while you are sitting here listening to me, there's a voice speaking to you, right? The voice may be telling you, what time is this Stephen going to end his sermon? It's going to be 12:30 soon. What am I going to eat later? Where am I going? These are the narrative going on in your head, right? So in order to overcome doubt, we need to learn to overcome that narrative that speaks to us. Every time you face a situation, what is your first narrative? You need to be conscious of what is the narrative that's going, because that is the honest voice that speaks to you. Many times, those very negative people, the first voice will tell them, you cannot do it, you're in big trouble. So from now on, if you're more conscious of what your narrative is telling you, you must consciously make effort to change it. Do you know that every year, as a school leader, vice principal in the school, just before the PSLE examination, in Singapore, PSLE examination to the parents, to the children, this is one of the major exams in a primary school, which will decide which school they will go to, the secondary school. So it is an important exam to everybody. Actually, to the kids, they are all mostly all right, because they are in school most of the time. Most of the pressure are created by the parents, because very high expectations from the parents. So we can see that just before they sit for the PSLE exam, the children, most of them feel very, very stressed. They have prepared well, the teachers have taught them well, but when they go into the exam hall, many of them feel very, very stressed. Perhaps the narrative that is coming into their mind, will I be able to answer the question well today? Most of them will feel that they have not studied enough. And the other narrative that comes into their head is, if I don't do well, my parents will be very angry with me. I will disappoint my parents. This kind of narrative that come into their mind. So usually what we'll do is that in the morning, before they go into the exam hall, we will sit them, and then the different teachers will come and speak to them to give them the confidence that not to worry. You have learned what you need to learn. You have prepared well for the exam. You will do well in this exam. And then the school leaders will speak to them last. Usually we will end by telling them, come on, we want every one of you to shout out together, you can do it. But you know what? The few hundred students, right, when you ask them to tell, you can do it, you can feel that they don't believe you. Right? Even the school leader as a vice principal telling the children, come on, let's shout together, you can do it. We can do it very, very soft, you can't hear. Because they don't believe. Why would I believe you, right? Until we have to tell them a few more times. Your teacher have taught them well, have taught you well, prepared. What other students in other schools can do, you can do better, not to worry and so on. Shout louder. Okay, second time louder. Third time, we have to tell them, I want you to shout so loud until the people in the other block can hear your voice. We can do it. Or then when all shout together a few more times and it is really loud and then the hall is shaking, it makes a lot different. The narrative that the children, when they shout out, they hurt themselves saying, I can do it, I can do it. When they go into the hall, the difference is this. You may have prepared it well, but when you have that kind of confidence and when you sit for the exam, you don't give up so easily. Correct? Just like all of us in our faith, when you are faced with doubts, you are faced with troubles, if you have that confidence, you don't give up so easily, that makes a lot of difference. All right? Of course, as a teacher, we believe that daily preparation is the most important. But last-minute confidence is just as important. The narrative that goes into your head is just as important. You don't give up so easily. Even if you can't do the full sum, you do as much as you can. You won't get zero. There are many students who leave the question paper blank. Submit a blank paper. Of course, you get a zero. You're going to fail, right? But at least you try. You can't answer the full question. You try a few segments. You will still be able to at least get a pass. Right? So the narrative. Focus on God's blessing is just as important. Sometimes we forget how much God has done for us. Sometimes we forgot how much our parents have done for us. Sometimes you think back when you're rude to your parents or your spouse and so on, right? We sometimes forget how much they have done for us, that we are so unforgiving towards them. Similarly for God, sometimes we forgot how much God has blessed us along the way. When we are doing well, we forget. Therefore, one way to overcome doubt is to continually focusing on how much God has blessed each one of us. And of course, the fifth one is about claiming God's promises. All of us have our own promises that we have claimed from God. God has blessed us before. Keep that in mind. My favorite is Psalms 34, verse 10. When I went through very, very difficult times in my life, I always refer back to this Psalms 34, verse 10. It says that the lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. What is this good thing? I do not know, but I only trust that the good things will come if we trust in God. It may not be in the form of money, it may not be in the form of promotion, but that is God's blessing and God's promise. All right, so continue to seek God's promise. In Isaiah 41, verse 10, it says that, fear thou not, I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, and I will help you. I will uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness. This is another promise which has kept me comforted all the while, right? So I will end with this simple story about this tribe of American Indians, this tribe. When they reach about 13 years old, they are moving into adulthood. So in their practice, this is what they do. They will blindfold the child and lead them into the jungles. Lead them into the jungle and then leave them there. If you survive throughout the night, it is cold, and there are wild animals inside. If you survive, the next day, when morning comes, you will be an adult. So this particular boy was blindfolded. He was led into the jungle in the evening. He can feel the air getting colder and colder. He can hear the sound of the night coming. Every time the leaves ruffles, the grass moves, he's very fearful that the wild animal, whether it is a bear or some other wild animal, will come and eat him up. He was very, very scared. The night drags on. All right, so even the few hours there seems like eternity to him. He was hoping that the morning will come very, very quickly. He was tempted to take out his blindfold and run, but he was thinking, if I run, it will be worse, isn't it? So dark in the jungle, where can I go? Getting colder and colder. But he persisted, and then he felt the sun rays shining on his face. Morning has come. He can feel the warmth of the sun, right? So it is time for him to take out his blindfold. So when he removed the blindfold, he actually saw his father sitting next to him. He's very near. But because he's blindfolded, he couldn't tell that the father was with him, right? So actually when he removed him, the father was with him all the while. No wild animals could actually approach him, right? Even though he was fearful, he was doubtful whether he can make it through the night. But actually, it was all right. The father is just next to him with the bow and arrow getting ready. Any wild animal come, the father is ready to protect the son. So this is the promise that God gives to each one of us. No matter how dark the nights that we are going through, no matter how big is our problem that we are going through, actually God is just like that, sitting next to us. But many times we couldn't see God's presence with us. That causes us to have the doubt. All right, so to end today's sharing, I just want to encourage everyone that knowing where the sources of the doubts come from is important so that we can make some changes, tweaks in our life to minimize it. And if when we have the doubt, these are the things that we need to remember that we can overcome the doubt. And the most important of all, to displace the doubt definitely will be there. We need to build up our faith in God so that we can minimize the doubt in our life, that God will be with us. Thank you.